You are sitting by a fire. The person next to you leans in and lowers their voice. They are about to tell you something you are not supposed to hear. Your ears sharpen. Your heartbeat changes. A small, ancient part of your brain has just lit up like a flare. You are experiencing one of the oldest and most powerful forces ever shaped by human evolution. For roughly 2 million years, this was not a social indulgence. This was a survival instinct. What we call gossip today was once the single most important information system your ancestors had. It held tribes together. It protected groups from cheaters and liars. It was the earliest form of recorded information, and without it, you would almost certainly not be alive to read this sentence. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent decades studying why humans talk. In the 1990s, he noticed something striking about primate brains. The size of the neocortex, the outer layer of the brain responsible for complex social thinking, correlated almost perfectly with the size of an animal's social group. The larger the neocortex, the larger the tribe. When Dunbar crunched the numbers for humans, he found that our brain size predicts an optimal social group of roughly 150 people. You know this as Dunbar's number. It is the reason your Christmas card list or social media follows tends to plateau near that number, even if you have thousands of followers you do not really know. But Dunbar's deeper discovery was a problem. In primate groups, social bonding happens through physical grooming. Monkeys and apes spend hours picking parasites from each other's fur. It releases endorphins. It builds trust. It is effective, but it only scales to about 50 individuals. Beyond that, you simply run out of time. To hold a group of 150 together, physical grooming alone would require nearly half your waking hours. So how did early humans bridge this gap? Dunbar's answer changed how we understand the evolution of language. Language, he argued, did not evolve primarily for hunting coordination or tool-making instruction. It evolved for social grooming at scale. Instead of tending to one person at a time with your hands, you could sit around a fire and groom an entire group at once by talking about them. Vocal grooming, verbal bonding. Shared information about who in the tribe could be trusted, who was dangerous, who owed a debt, and who was not pulling their weight. That is what gossip is. It is grooming with words instead of hands. Dunbar published these ideas in his 1996 book, Grooming, Gossip, and the Evolution of Language. It was controversial at the time. But since then, a growing body of evidence from anthropology, psychology, and neuroscience has supported the core claim. Consider the work of Polly Wiesner. She spent years living with the Kung people of the Kalahari Desert in Botswana and Namibia during the 1970s and 1980s. The Kung are one of the last societies that lived as hunter-gatherers into the modern era. Wiesner sat with them night after night around their campfires. She recorded what they talked about. The results were striking. Most conversation was not about hunting techniques, spiritual myths, or survival strategies. It was about other people who had shared food, who had been stingy, who had disrespected a relative, who had been unfaithful, and crucially, what had happened as a result. These nightly sessions were not idle chatter. They were the tribe's operating system. Every individual's reputation was constantly being updated, debated, and broadcast to everyone who needed to know. In a band of 30 to 40 hunter-gatherers, reputation was everything. A good reputation meant you were sought out as a hunting partner. It meant people shared their kills with your family. It meant that when you fell sick, someone brought you water without being asked. A bad reputation meant the opposite. You were not shared with. Your children ate less. When you were injured, people took longer to notice. In extreme cases, it meant ostracism, which, in a prehistoric world of predators, starvation, and hostile rival groups, was almost certainly a death sentence. This reputation economy has a name in evolutionary biology. It is called indirect reciprocity. The idea is simple. I do something generous for you. Word spreads through the group. Sometime later, someone who heard about it does something generous for me. I did not need to be watched by a camera or a judge. I was watched by everyone, and everyone talked. Gossip is the engine that powers indirect reciprocity. Without reputation information moving through the group, cooperation cannot sustain itself. Free riders exploit the system. No one wants to be the only one contributing while others take. Eventually, the group fragments or dissolves. This is not just anthropological theory. It has been demonstrated in controlled experiments. In 2012, the psychologist Matthew Feinberg and his colleagues at the University of California, Berkeley, published a study in which participants played an economic cooperation game. Some groups were allowed to gossip about players who did not contribute. Other groups were forbidden from gossiping. The result was stark. Groups that could gossip maintained high levels of cooperation round after round. Groups that could not gossip saw cooperation steadily collapse. Feinberg also found something unexpected. The people who spread the gossip were not viewed negatively by the group. They were seen as pro-social, as individuals who cared about the health of the community. Gossip, far from being petty or malicious, was recognized by the group as a form of public service. Now let us reconstruct a scene. It is 40,000 years ago. You are in a camp of about 30 people at the edge of a forest in what is now southwestern Europe. A man returned from hunting 3 days ago empty-handed. That happens. No one judges a hunter for a bad day, but yesterday someone saw him eating meat behind a large rock. He had hidden part of an earlier kill. He was eating alone while others in the camp had gone hungry. You hear about this from your sister, who heard it from the woman who saw it with her own eyes. You tell your partner. By nightfall, the entire camp knows. No one accuses the man, no one confronts him. There is no trial, no chief, no written law. But the next time he is sick, no one brings extra water. The next time his family is hungry, they are offered food only after everyone else has eaten. He has not been punished. He has simply been gossiped into a lower social standing. And this system, subtle, word of mouth, completely informal, is how human societies enforced cooperation for tens of thousands of years before courts, prisons, police, or any formal institution ever existed. Here is the counterintuitive insight. Modern culture tells us gossip is trivial, cruel, or beneath us. But the research suggests the opposite. The ability to gossip, to track and share detailed information about other people's behavior, required cognitive abilities that may have driven the expansion of the human brain itself. Think about what gossip demands. You have to remember who did what and when. You have to evaluate whether the person telling you is reliable. You have to weigh the social cost of passing the information along. You have to predict how the group will shift as a result. And you have to do all of this without the help of writing, records, or any external memory system. Gossip was not a byproduct of human intelligence. It was one of the forces that made us intelligent in the first place. Your brain today is still wired for this world. When you instinctively turn your head at the sound of your name across a crowded room, that is your ancient social survival system scanning for reputation threats. When you feel a rush of closeness, sharing a secret with a trusted friend, that is the same endorphin release that bonded your ancestors around a fire 100,000 years ago. When you scroll through social media and absorb a stream of updates about who did what to whom, you are doing exactly what your prehistoric brain evolved to do. You are grooming at scale. You are running the oldest information network in human history. The judgment you carry about gossip, that it is shallow, that it is a waste of time, that it makes you small, is a very modern invention. It is a luxury that only exists because your survival no longer depends on knowing exactly who in your social network can be trusted. But the instinct itself is not a flaw in your mental software. It is the operating system. So the next time you find yourself leaning in to hear something you are not supposed to, do not feel guilty. You are doing something your ancestors have been doing for 2 million years. You are updating your social map. You are protecting yourself and the people you care about. You are running the oldest survival program in the human operating system. You are sitting by a fire. The person next to you leans in and lowers their voice. And you listen. Because you always have.